Hey. Just realized I had the microphone on already, so that's exciting for you. Um, oh, I need to close this door. Hang on. So, welcome. Um, so for today's session, actually, I'm gonna turn off my delay because I'm not doing GitLab stuff today. Give me a second. Okay, I'm gonna come back. I'll be right back. Okay, streaming again, and this time, no delay. I hope. Let me just make sure it's working. Test. Okay, there's very little delay. That's good enough. Cool, great. Okay, so today, what I want to do is, where is this? This isn't my screen. Weird. Hang on. That's very odd. Wait, we're not seeing my actual screen. Okay. Yeah, better. Great. Okay. That was a rocky start. Let's see if we can get better. So we're going to go to codepen.io. So the purpose of this session today, what I want to do is create a course for someone who's brand new to coding, real fresh. Now, there's a lot to learn when you're real fresh. There's a lot of things you have to piece together. But what I want to do is make it as fun as possible because learning how to code is really boring and it's really hard, and it's difficult. So what we're going to do is we're going to acknowledge that learning is going to take some time. So what we want to do is make it the most fun possible so that you stay engaged. Now, for me, the most fun possible is to make a game. That's what I like doing. So I think it's pretty common, so I'm going to do that. And you guys can watch, you can make your own game. I'm keen to hear your questions. I'm keen to hear anything you got to say, really. So some background on me. I'm a front-end engineer. I work on GitLab.com. I should be watching this because it's probably important for you guys, for you all. Yeah. Okay. So this is CodePen. It's one of the options we're going to consider for our game. This is what I used to make my first game in. I'll show you where. So if you look for James Rushford portfolio, James Rushford portfolio, you'll be able to see this one, James Rushford's projects page. This is my original projects page when I was learning how to code. from a few years ago. I came from advertising sales. I built this to show off what I could do. So this is the game that I made, and this is what we're going to remake, and it's a game I made in CodePen. So you can see the source. So I use HTML, I use no CSS, I did some CSS styling, but I did it all in the JavaScript. Hang on, I think my headphones are not on. It's probably important for if you want to say something to me. Hang on. Okay, that's better. Now you can hear me. Sorry, I can hear you if you have something to say. So this is the game that I originally made. This is the game that we're going to remake. Because I think it's pretty cool. I think it's cool for a few reasons. One is the game is about leaving your advertising sales job behind and embarking on a brand new career in software, which is what you might be doing, which is what I was doing. So it's a little bit meta. So what happens is you start with some money. This is when I made it, 2019. So this was the actual, pretty close to the actual date. So it was January 2019. So it was only 5 years ago, but this is all the JavaScript I knew. And so one of the reasons I like this project is because it starts very simple, and the more you play, the more complex it gets. And also, it starts very simple, so it's possible to create the game very, very quickly, and it's just a terrible game. It doesn't have many things in it, and you can add to it to make it better. Why this is good is you can immediately show people, hey, I made this game. It's terrible, but I just started, so that's cool. So I'll do you a quick run through the game. So if you work, you make money, you lose happiness. If you lose all your happiness, you lose. You lose. Right? So we start a new game. If you run out of money, like you're learning to code too much, so learning to code costs you money because it costs money to live. It costs you happiness because it is boring, but your coding level increases. Now, if you run out of, so if you want more happiness, you need to do some leisure. But if you run out of money, you also lose. So what you need to do is balance work, learning, and leisure. Work, learning, leisure. And this is good life advice. Balance your working, your leisure, and your learning to code. What happens if you learn to code and you're happy and you have some money, then you can work on a project. This is my project, Career Changer. So when you work on the project, you get points to upgrade the project, right? So because my coding level is 144, when I work on my project, I get 144 points to spend on my project. So if I want the text to be aligned, boom. Right? So you can see in the code, text align. Oops. We want to find text. Oh my gosh, what a terrible system. We're not going to use CodePen for this. We're going to use a different one, but I still want to show you this project. So the code is in here. It all looks terrible, but I was brand new at coding, so please, there's no judgment allowed here. I didn't even know what a code formatter was, so yeah, I had to learn that. So the more you work on your project, let's do it again. So we need to make sure our happiness is up, and we work to make some money, and we do some learning to code, and then we can work on our project. So we can align the text. We can add a low money warning. We can add a low happiness warning. So now when you work too much and you become a bit upset, here we go. We've got a warning. Look after yourself. Do some leisure. All good. And if we do too much leisure or too much learning to code, it's going to take us ages. And it's going to take you ages, really. Learning to code is not a quick activity. So now we have a money warning. Low money, go back to work. So we work a bit. We do some leisure so we don't be too sad. And we work on our project. So as we work on our project, we develop this. So what this means is really cool. So the game is ready to be played, and the game could stop here. Stop, it's done. It's terrible, but it's done. And the really great thing is you can add to it whenever you have time, and you're always going to make your game a little bit better, maybe worse. This is arguably worse. Maybe you want a green background. Arguably worse. So now we can add career details, so you can see what is your current career, what does it cost you, what do you make. So here you make 250 euros a day. Pretty good. That's a great rate. But it costs you 10 happiness every day. So if you work for 10 days in a row and you don't take any leisure, you have no happiness left. And the current coding the coding skills you get from work is nothing. So if you go to work, you'll see you make money, but your coding skill level does not increase. But your happiness decreases a lot. So now we want to add the ability to change jobs. So now what we can do is we can see what jobs are available and we can pick one. So software engineer intern, this is a job I want. Job happiness cost 5. So it only costs 5 happiness instead of advertising sales, which costs you 10. Every job is going to cost you some happiness, right? But anyway, so when you work, you get 10 coding skills every day that you work. And you make 50 euros a day. A lot less. And the coding skill level you need is 100. So I'm at almost 400. So I can take this job. But it doesn't pay very well, and I need to make sure that I have enough money so I'm not going to starve. Now, this is a good goal here, junior software engineer, 150, because it costs me 50 to live every day. So here, I don't make any money. So whenever I take any days off, I'm losing money. So I need this job as soon as possible, but I need 1,000 code skill level. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take on this intern job. So now, because I have some money saved up, I can do work, and as I'm working, I'm increasing my coding skill level by 10. My happiness is going down a bit, so take some leisure. So I just want to work enough that I can get to 1,000, and then I can get that junior software engineering job without running out of money. Right? It's very meta. It's a fun game, really, and we're going to recreate it because I think this is the best way to learn. So now we have 1,000 code skill level. We want to see, is the junior software engineering job available? And fuck yeah, it is. All right, so now we are a junior software engineer. Well done, you made it. You're a junior software engineer. Now your job only costs you 5 happiness per day instead of 50, and you make 150 a day, which is enough to live on, and you learn 20 code skills every time you work. So now, if you work, you are actually quite effective in your code skill level. So what we want to do next is work on our project. Now, this is the end of the game. The whole game is finished. But the great thing about it is it's upgradable. So what that means is we can add in more features that can be unlocked when you work on your project. And that's what you are going to do. You're going to continue to build this game until you're comfortable in 3 things. 1, HTML. Here is our base HTML. 2, CSS. Now my CSS is not very good. I don't really like it. It's very boring to me. What I really like is JavaScript. But in order to be a front-end engineer, you need to know HTML, CSS. So this was my way of learning HTML, CSS while really focusing on JavaScript. So you can see in my JavaScript that this is done all in vanilla JavaScript. Everything's vanilla. There's no libraries here at all. So it really gives you a good understanding of how JavaScript works. And then also, how does HTML work? Because you can see we've got a few, whenever we change something, like we're changing the background to blue, we're doing this in JavaScript. You can see there's no CSS. The HTML is very, very skint, and everything's in JavaScript. That's what you're going to do for your project that I'm going to walk you through now, but I want you to know what we're doing and why. So the great thing about this project is, you're going to learn basics HTML, CSS, primarily JavaScript. JavaScript is the hardest thing, so we're going to spend most of our time focusing on it, and we're going to learn all three things at the same time. So CodePen is a fine place to start, but what I'm going to use is Code Sandbox. I'll show you why. So on Code Sandbox, we're going to sign in. I don't have an account. I'm setting this up from scratch, so you're going to have the same experience as me. I'm going to sign in with Google. You can sign in with whoever you want. I don't have a GitHub account on How to Software Engineer yet, so let's do this. How to Software Engineer. So if you've just joined, you're watching me. I'm creating a new course on how to be a front-end developer. It's an education one. How to Software Engineer is already taken by who? I own howtosoftwareengineer.com on Twitch, everywhere. What? James, how about that? Yeah, that's never going to be taken. Cool. So now, signed up. So what I'm going to do is we're going to create a new project. Free plan will be limited to 20 sandboxes. That's fine. You're never going to use more than 20. You're probably not. If you are, you can pay for it. So what we're going to do is, we're going to make a new project. So we have some options. Let's read them. So a sandbox, create a simple front-end prototype where all your code runs in your browser. That's what we want. This is build and share standalone projects of any size in a cloud development environment. I don't know. I think sandbox. And then it's going to ask you, what technology do you want to do this in? Do we want to do it in React? Do we want to do it in TypeScript React? Do we want to do it in vanilla TypeScript? There's a lot more. So you can do it in Vue. What? Okay. Apparently, there's not a lot more. We're going to use HTML, CSS. Beginner. Maybe we don't need a sandbox. Maybe we need a dev box. But let's check. Beginner, career, changer, game. That's what we're going to do. We're going to recreate the beginner, career changer game. And I'm going to encourage you to make your own version. That's how you're going to learn. All right. Yeah, this looks right. Cool. I don't know about this. Let's convert it to a dev box and we'll see. We're not in a hurry. You're watching me create this course. This isn't the course. So I'm going to take my time and have a look at the options and do this properly. Enjoy code autocomplete. Enjoy for free. Okay, we're not going to use this because it's for beginners and I want you to do it properly. Okay, cool. This doesn't look great. So what I'm going to do is start a new project because we only just started this. So we're going to start a new project. Let's go back to the start page. I'll show you why in a second. So we're going to create a dev box. Okay, now we've got a lot more options. So Vue, Python, heaps of shit. What we want is vanilla JavaScript, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. JavaScript, Code Sandbox, JavaScript. This is what we need, the JavaScript template. Absolute beginner. Oh, I can't spell any of these right. Absolute beginner front end course project. Now, most courses, they're going to show you, they're going to start from the start. This is what HTML is, this is what CSS is, this is what JavaScript is. It's not the way I learn. I don't like that. I like to mix everything together and slowly piece out how things work. Because for me, personally, HTML doesn't really make sense by itself, nor does CSS, nor does JavaScript. But if you mix it all together, it's so much easier. So, in my opinion. Okay, so now what we've got is, I'm just going to zoom in here a little bit because I think it's a bit small. Do we want a quick tour of Sandbox? Nah, it's fine. Now, I'm going to show you what we're looking at here. So, this Sandbox is your project. Now, your project has a folder, right? So if you look at, I'll show you on my own computer. If you look at, if you want to see the GitLab UI project, it's literally a folder, right? And it's a folder that looks a lot like this folder. Where it says dot code sandbox, it means it's hidden. It means you don't have to see it. But this looks the same in as any other project. Now, this looks really similar. The reason why we're doing it is, why is this here? Why is it in bright yellow? I just want to click it. So if you look at VS Code, if we open up Visual Studio Code and we look at a project, so let's have a look at Empire of Cards. It's another project I'm working on. This is literally a folder in my documents / Empire of Cards. So this is a folder, and in this folder we have all of these different files, and we're going to go through what most of them mean and what most of them are. But we're going to go do this very slowly, very thoroughly. So I like this environment because it looks a lot like where we'll be coding. So here is our HTML. It's very basic. Let me walk you through each of the things here. Now, in HTML, it stands for Hypertext Markup Language. So it's the way you have a web page, right? So in every web page, you have your HTML. So anything, this is a opening tag, and this is a closing tag. You can tell the difference because this one has a slash at the start of it, /HTML, it closes. So all of the HTML is within this section. Cool. Now, as you can see, there's some other sections. This is the head. So head open, head close, title, metadata, and then body open, body close, and we have a div and we have a script. Now, I'm going to take you through what most of these are in a second, but the first thing I want you to know is we have a HTML page, and this HTML page has HTML elements, and the elements are what make up the actual page, right? So here, what is title? Now, I remember what title means, but you probably don't know what it means, and there's a lot of things to remember. So I'm going to tell you, don't try to remember. MDN title HTML. That's what we're going to search for. The Mozilla Developer Network Web Docs. This is going to be your best friend for learning how to code front end, particularly for HTML and CSS. Probably JavaScript also, really. I'm not sure. So you can look this up for anything you have a question about. HTML, body, head, any of these things. You can look it up, what each of them do. So we can have a look at, let's have another look at body. That's another one we're going to look at. What is a body? You can read it on MDN. Don't try to memorize it. You don't need to memorize everything. You just need to know where to find the information. And slowly, you'll memorize it. It's fine. I have a terrible memory. I can't memorize things. But the more you use it, the more you'll remember. You'll be okay. I promise. So what does the title do? Let's go back to the page. So what the title does is the title HTML element defines the document's title that's showed in the browser's title bar or the pages tab. It's this. So this says JavaScript sandbox. Why does it say start 1, 2, 3, 4? I don't know. But if we open this URL in a new page, we have the title JavaScript sandbox. So what we can do now is we can change it. So let's do this. We'll hide this. Okay, now we have two windows. Hello JavaScript sandbox. So now we can add things like JavaScript poop. Yeah. So now you can see in the title we updated it. So we're going to update the title to be career changer game. Now, what I just did is I saved it, Command S, and it automatically reloaded career changer game. So now we have a title. What is meta? Good question. Let's Google it. The meta MDN HTML. That's what we want to look for. Anything you're not sure about. What is meta? The meta HTML element represents the metadata, blah, 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 blah. All it's saying here is we're using a character set of UFT8. I don't know what that means. I do. But I barely understand this. And the point is, it doesn't matter. You don't need to know everything about it. You just need to know how to look it up. If there was a problem, you need to understand what is char set. How do you do it? Well, it's pretty straightforward. You Google meta, the tag, and then you look for char set in the page. Meta char set, and it says a head element if the head equiv is not. Okay, I don't think that's what we want. Let's go to the next char set. Okay, cool. Attributes char set. Now, in a HTML element, you have attributes. This one has char set. I think it stands for character set. I'm going to start saying character set. This one, div, it has an ID. Script, it has a source, it has a type. These are each attributes in the HTML element. So this is a HTML element, opening tag, closing tag. Anything in between it is like, so here we have title, opening tag, title, closing tag, and the text in between it is what the title is, right? And these are its attributes. So meta does not have anything in it. In fact, this is a special one. This is not an opening or a closing tag. This is a self-closing tag. If an element only has attributes and has no content, we can make it self-closing. So that's what this does. It has a slash before the last arrow bracket, crocodile bracket. I don't know what you call these. Let's have a look. Again, you don't need to know these things. You just need to know how to find what it is. Okay, what if we just search for that? Okay. Doesn't matter. I don't care anymore. Alright, cool. Now, we're going to go through this as well. So, what's happening here is we have a div. A div is, you can look it up, but you know how to look it up now. What a div is, it's an empty It's an empty HTML element that can be added to or changed by the JavaScript, and that's what's happening here. What JavaScript, you might ask? Well, here is a script tag. What this is, it has a source, so what it has is a destination of where is the JavaScript that we're going to run, and a type. So it says MJS, and this is type modal. I would have expected it to just say index.js. I don't know what MJS is, so I'm going to Google it. What is MJS? MJS extension is a JavaScript source code file that uses ECMA. Again, if you don't know these terms, you can just Google it. But ECMA script is the technical name for JavaScript. We update it every year. And so ECMA 24 is 2024's version of JavaScript. It'll have more features every year. But this is the thing we really want to know. What is the difference between JS and MJS? This website is going to be your best friend. You're going to find it all the time. Set up an account. It's really cool. So you can ask a question and answer a question, and you get points for asking a good question. You get points for answering a good question, and you can see your score, and you can get a job from having a good score. A lot of employers will search here. So what is the difference between JavaScript and MJ and M JavaScript files? I don't need to know the question because I have the same question. Okay, so it indicates an ES6. ES6 is very confusing. Previously, we only updated JavaScript every year. Sorry, once every few years. So we had JavaScript version 1, which was called JavaScript, and then we changed the naming to be ECMAScript. So ES6 is JavaScript in 2015. It went through a big overhaul, and a lot of things were changed. So we now, instead of saying JavaScript, it's more correct to say like ES6. It has a lot more functionality. It's really quite different. Anyway, so what does it do? Node.js. What is Node.js? Another good question. Google it. But what Node.js does is, so JavaScript is a really special language. Let me show you. JavaScript is made for use in the browser. Every piece of code that runs in a browser, like in Chrome, is JavaScript. And you can write JavaScript in Google Chrome or any other browser like this. You can create constants. Let name equal James. I'm gonna show you a little bit about what this means. So what I'm saying is I'm defining a variable called name, and I'm giving it the content of James. Now James is a string, so it's text. It's got quotation marks around it. So now if we ask for name, we're going to get James. So if we wanted to print something, if we wanted, so this is JavaScript, and it's running in the browser. We can do all kinds of funny stuff, like we can create a function called who is cool. Now, when you write JavaScript, when you name something, the first character should be lowercase, and then the next the next word starts with the uppercase. It's called camel casing. So what this is, we're writing a function. You don't need to understand how this works. Again, we're just having a high-level overview at this point. But if what we can do is we can say who is cool. So this function is called who is cool, and it will give you back something. And what we're telling it to give back is the name. So we want to say, okay, let name equal James. So now if we run this function, who is cool, and we give it parentheses, open and close parentheses, to run this function, we get a return value of James. So now we know James is cool. Anyway, so JavaScript is a very special language. It's made for running in browsers. And Node.js is like a sister of JavaScript. What Node.js is a it's JavaScript that runs outside of a browser environment. It's tough. So say if you wanted to write a script that runs on your computer when you start up. So you start up the computer and you want it to say, like, I don't know, when you start up my computer, can you please log me into VS Code? You can write this in JavaScript. It's probably not written in JavaScript. It's probably written in some other language. If you wanted to write some code that says, when I run this, please turn on my lights connected to my home speaker, or open the blinds, or whatever you're doing, because you're not running it in a web page, it's not JavaScript, because JavaScript runs in a web page in a browser. This is running in a different environment, and if it's written in JavaScript, we say it's written in Node.js. There's slightly different rules, but it's not something we're going to focus on now. We just need to know why is this called MJS, not JS. Let's keep reading, because I actually don't know. Since Node.js was created, the ECMAScript module system, which uses import and export, has become standard, and Node.js has support for it. Okay, it's not really relevant to us. Node.js will treat CJS files as CommonJS and MJS as files in ECMAScript. It will treat JS files as whatever default model system for the project, which is common JavaScript, unless packaged JSON. Again, I don't think there's a difference. We're going to ignore it and treat it like it's the exact same, because it seems like it is. Here is our JavaScript, and here is our CSS. Now, let's play with each of them so we can test this out. So, I would also expect to see like a CSS importing here, but I think it's happening automatically. So what's happening, I'll take you through each of these files. Okay, so we've gone through HTML pretty thoroughly. Now I want to take you through JavaScript. Now, what is JavaScript doing? We're going to spend most of our time in this JavaScript file. So the first thing it's doing is it's importing styles.css. So here is our CSS file. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger again. Here is our CSS file, and what the CSS file does is it defines the CSS, which is short for cascading style sheet, which is our design, the language we write our design in, for the page. So I'll give you an example. Body. So what we're doing is, remember in our HTML, we have a head and we have a body. The body is everything that is rendered. What do I mean by rendered? I mean drawn. Rendering is drawing, right? So in the head, none of this is rendered. We don't draw it, we just need to know it. In the body, okay, this is the stuff that you draw. And what we're drawing is an empty div, which doesn't do anything. Now what we're doing in JavaScript is we're saying we're getting that empty div by some really interesting functions, and we're getting it, and we're adding to the inner HTML a h1. Now, if we remove this line, so what we're going to do is comment it out. Oops. Comment it out. So what it does is, if you put 2 slashes before a line, comments it out. It says, don't read this, just comment. It's fine. It's just a comment. So then the developers who are reading it can read the comment, and JavaScript's not going to read it. So now this is invisible to JavaScript. That's why it's turned grey. And if we save it and we load our page, we'll get no H1. So if we want to, I'll just show you this so you can learn some, because we're learning a few things at once. We're learning HTML, we're learning JavaScript, and we're learning CSS. So H1 is a heading. The 1 refers to how high of a heading is this. 1 is the biggest. You should only have one H1. 2 is like a subtitle. 6 is like a very small subtitle. But heading, H is for heading. So heading 1, and then closing H1, and we're going to say yo. Oops, yo. Okay, so come on, refresh. Okay, it still says you. Save, refresh. Come on. What is up? Okay, cool. So now we've got a H1 heading. And what we're doing is we're rendering this H1 heading. We can do a H2 heading and it's going to be smaller. H2, slightly smaller. Oh my gosh, I can't type. Smaller heading. H2. Okay, so now you can see the difference between H1 and H2. It's slightly smaller. But what we want to do, as well as this, is the styling. So we could do background color, and we could say we want it to be blue-violet. So this is changing the CSS. The CSS handles the styling. The HTML covers the content, right? Like the structure. So if you think of it as a body, right? HTML is the bones, it's the structure. CSS is the outside, it's the styling, it's the skin, it's the makeup, it's the clothes, it's all of these things. And then JavaScript is the muscles that make everything move. But JavaScript is extra powerful muscles, so JavaScript can adjust everything. The CSS, the bones, everything. JavaScript can control all of it, and what we're going to do is use JavaScript to write all of it. So what I want is like a light purple. Light pink, that's fine. Okay, so now we have a background, and we have our HTML. Sorry, we have our HTML and we have our JavaScript. Now, what is this JavaScript doing? This is where it gets really fun and interesting. So, in JavaScript, I don't know how to explain this for a brand new beginner, but in JavaScript, because JavaScript is written for the browser, there are a few things that we know that always exist in a browser. Now, a browser always has a document, because a document is the whole page. So I'll show you what I mean by this. So if we look at the console, because again, we can run JavaScript in the browser directly. If we look at document, oh my gosh, you got a tab when you can see that the whole page is highlighted because the whole page is included in the document. And we can see all of the attributes of this document. So this document is a HTML page that has this HTML in it. So you can see it's got the title, it's got the head, it's got the body, it's got everything. So what's happening here is we're saying this JavaScript is running a function called document, which gets the whole thing, and then we're running a function on this. So we're saying document has a built-in function. That built-in function, we want to access that. Sorry, I'm going to close this so we have more space. We want to access this. We want to access an element in the document, and we're going to get that element by its ID. So you can see in the HTML, we have an element called div, which has an ID of app. So what this says is in the document has a function called getElementById. Again, you need to know it exists, but you don't need to remember what it is. MDN has a very, very good, thorough description of what this is and how it works. If you want to know, you can find out. Now what we're doing is we're passing it a parameter. So you know how this is the easiest way I can explain it in I want Google Sheets. I think most people, if you know how to use computers, you probably know how to use Google Sheets pretty well, right? So if you have 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 32, I guess, whatever, I don't care. And we want to run a formula. What we do is very similar, actually. We say equal sign to say this is code that we're writing. We write a function in Google Sheets, it's all caps. JavaScript is different. And then we give it the values. So in the parentheses, which is the brackets, we give it the values that this function requires. So in this case, we're doing a sum, and we're giving it the cells that we want to add up. If we gave it, if we just said A1 to 2, it's only going to sum A1 and 2. Because 3, it's going to do all 3, and we said 4, so it's going to do all 4. Right? So in JavaScript, it's very, very similar. We have a function. It's called getElementById. It's written on the document, so we can do document dot getElementById. Oops, we want element by ID. We want to give it an ID. In this case, it has the ID of app. You can see it here, app. Right, app. And then if we press enter, we're going to get this element back. And we can see the element. And what we can do is we can change the element. So say we want, so now we've got the element, we can say style dot color should equal hot pink instead of pink. So now, this looks terrible, but so now what we've done in JavaScript is we've said, I want you to take the document, which is the browser that we're working in. Now, that browser that we're working in, it has a function called getElementById. I know this because I've used it before. Then I want to use that function, and I'm giving you the name, the ID of the element that I want to adjust. The ID is called app. It's a string. It has quotation marks around it. We want to adjust the style of it, and within the style, we want to adjust the color. Now, you're not going to know what's available on here, and that's fair enough. That is the thing you have to learn. You have to practice, see what other people use, read the docs. Yeah, it just takes time. And then you'll be able to remember style has its own attribute called color. Color addresses the color instead of the background color, which would be everything. So you can also do this by like document dot, oh my gosh, I keep entering instead of tab, body. We can address the entire body of the document, and we can say the body should have a style, so we can see the style of the body. We can see all of the attributes. Now they're all empty except for I think we'll find background color is set to, no, it's not. It's just in the CSS. I would have expected background color to be light pink. Yeah, that's a separate thing. Okay, so there's two levels of styling, right? You can have a styling on the HTML, and you can have a styling on the CSS. So you can imagine the HTML to be like, when you build the building, walls can come in blue, right? I'm ordering a prefabricated building, and the walls are set in blue, HTML, right? What I'm going to do is apply the CSS rules, which is paint it. So this is how does it come directly. Now, there's some funny things here, like there's rules about which gets listened to first. And the thing that always gets listened to first is the default in the HTML. So what that means is, I know I skipped over that. I'll show you where to learn it. What this means is we can do background color, and we can change it to blue. And it's going to override the CSS. So what we're going to do here is we're going to have an understanding of what the HTML is, what the CSS is, and then we're just going to play with it on JavaScript. Now, I can hear you saying, how do I learn all these things? There's too many things to learn. There's a lot of things to learn. This is where I learn. It's really great. Free code camp. It's all free. I'm going to create an account and show you how to do it. I can't believe this resource is free, honestly. Okay. It's important to read these things. You do it on your time. I've already read it. Okay, so what we're going to do is these first two. That's what we're going to focus on. Responsive web design certification covers HTML and CSS. This is how I learned HTML and CSS. You start on lesson 1. You go through all of it. There's a lot of things to learn here. Now, for me personally, to go through these things is so fucking boring. Like, it's really good, but it's so, I don't know, tedious. I just want to build something, you know? I don't want to do a stupid cat thing. So what I do is I learn on my project. I'm going to build a game, right? Or whatever it is you want to build, right? I'd encourage you to build a game. Build a game like mine, customize it to be your own. What I really want is you to fall in love with this game and build this game. Be excited about this game. Okay. So what I did is, whenever I get frustrated in building my game, I use that frustrated, angry energy to come to Free Code Camp and work through this boring stuff. I'm sorry to the person who wrote this. I know it's not, like, it's good, it's interesting, it's useful, it's so useful. It's how I learned how to code. But I find things like this extremely tedious. It's not a problem of the course. It's a good course. Make sure you hear that. But I find all courses super boring. So what I want to do is build something. So that's what we're doing. Okay, let's get back to it. So if we refresh, we're going to get rid of all of that JavaScript that we just wrote. Because I closed the terminal. Okay, let's explore what the terminal is. Okay, so in on your computer you have a terminal. I'll show you, like command prompt, or this is starting it in Windows. This is in Windows. You have a command prompt. So before Windows existed, we all just navigated like this, you know. To have a look at what's in the file, that's how we used to navigate. A lot of code was written. We still do this a lot. It's just developers that use it. It's a lot easier to create a program that runs in a terminal than it is a UI. You don't need to design so much of the UI. So we're using a terminal, and the way we use the terminal is we can have a look in package.json, and we can see what the possible scripts are that we can run. So in JavaScript, every project is run on one of two things. One is npm, Node Package Manager. Now, what this means is I can write a Node package, which you remember Node is JavaScript, but it's not in the browser. So I can write a Node package and I can publish it and you can use it. This is one of the best things about JavaScript, is it has a great, strong community that builds heaps of things for it, that encourages each other, that helps each other. It's really very collaborative. Or you can use Yarn, which is the same thing, but it's owned by Facebook. That's it. Yarn, yeah, it's open source, but it's part of I think it's open source. Let's see. Yeah, it is open source. This is the source code. We're going to get to source code later, but so every project will run on Yarn or npm. Okay, you can see this is a Yarn lock, which means it's running Yarn. It's real confusing. Anyway, so to start something, you say Yarn, and then you run one of the things that it says in the script. Start is what we're going to run. Start. Oh my gosh. Yarn start. And what this is going to do is it's going to run this this program that you've written, and it's going to serve this to a website. This is the website it's serving it to. Now, Code Sandbox is doing some real fancy shit, and it's giving you a public address so that anybody can access it. I put it in the chat so you can see. It. Also, you can see there's another cool thing here we can add. There's some way I can share this whole thing with you, but I don't know how. Share. Here we go. Okay, I think it's just this, so we're going to check it in a incognito window, and hopefully you'll be able to see. Yeah, you can see my code. Great. So I'll post this in the chat as well. It's way too long of a URL, but that's okay. Wow, it's actually too long. Fine. It's actually too long for YouTube. Okay. And it's probably too long for Twitch. No, it seems fine on Twitch. Alright. No worries. Anyway. Yeah, if you have any questions, let me know if it worked. I don't know if it did. Anyway, cool. So this is your project running here. Hello JavaScript. Now, let's start to actually make some fun bits, huh? So instead of hello JavaScript, we're gonna give it the name Career Changer Game. Now, so now if we save it, we do a little refresh, we're going to get this. Great. Now, what I want to start with is a button and a count of how many times we've pushed that button. Because what we want is the shittest game possible that still works. So to do that, we're going to write it in HTML. Now, this doesn't need to be in JavaScript, so we're not going to put it in JavaScript. Okay, we're going to put it in HTML. And then we're going to create a button. Now, there's a bunch of HTML elements you can create. Why is there no autocomplete on here? There should be some autocomplete. Let's check. Okay. Sorry. What I want is some, I think it's probably this AI features. Restart it. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, what I want is just some like, so the AI is going to suggest what we might want to do. Like it's going to try to autocomplete stuff, which is great. It's useful. I don't know, when you're learning, it's good to learn the basics, but you'll get there. Okay, so we'll start working away on this anyway. So in the career change again, we want a button. We want this button to say, click me. Now remember, what is in between the tags is what is used as the text, right? So whatever you put in between these two tags is what's going to be displayed on the button. Click me. Yeah, dickhead. Okay, whatever you write in here is going to be on there. Anyway, so we're going to say click me. And then what happens when you click me? Nothing. What I want is a score. So what I want in between here, I'm going to close this bit. Oh, it is running again, so let's see. Cool. So we can click it and nothing happens. What I want here is a score. Now, I'm going to use a paragraph tag. So, a paragraph tag does what you'd expect it to be. It's just saying saying in HTML, this is a paragraph. Now, it's really, really important that you use the right HTML tags, because you could write a different tag. So I'll show you. Score 0. So this is I'm saying this is a paragraph. This can just be a div, and it works the same. It's slightly different because the paragraph has some like inbuilt padding, which you can see. But yeah, you want to try to use the right HTML tag. There's a few reasons for it. The main one is it helps your web page to become more machine readable. So if everything was divs, like instead of using a heading, we just used a div and we styled it to look like a heading. And instead of using a paragraph, we just used a div and we styled it to look like a paragraph. Even instead of using a button, we used a div and we styled it to look like a button. We can totally do that, but the problem is it's only readable by a human, and a sighted human. So the machine can't read it, which means so some automatic things happen, particularly if you're using some accessibility things like a screen reader. A screen reader will read out the title of the page or the H1 of the page before a paragraph, because it knows H1 is an important heading and paragraph is not an important heading, it is a paragraph. And it also knows what a button is and how to interact with it. So if you use the right HTML, it becomes more and more accessible for people using screen readers, for people using any sort of accessibility on there. But it also helps the computer to read it, so then Google can index your page better, and you're going to get more traction, more volume to your page if Google can read your page better. When people talk about SEO, search engine optimization. Often what they're talking about is using HTML correctly so that your website can be better read. Okay, so now we have a score and click me and doesn't do anything. So what I would like is within this paragraph tag, I'm going to create a new tag called a span. What is a span? Do you know what I'm going to say? I'm going to say I don't know. Look it up on MDN. I only remember how to use it. I don't know what it is. So let's read it. The span HTML element is a generic inline container for phrasing content, which does not inherently represent anything. It can be used to group elements for styling purposes, using a class or an ID, because they share attribute values such as a language. It should only be used when no other semantic element is appropriate. Span is very much like div, right? It means nothing. But div is a block element, level element, where a span is an inline element. What is the difference there? So the span is within the paragraph. It's incorrect to have a div in the paragraph because it's a block. It's not inline. I don't know. This is the thing that I don't know. I just know how to use it. So here now we're saying in the span, say 0. It looks the same, but what we can do is we can give this span an ID of score, and now we can access it in our JavaScript. Now this has single quotes. This has double quotes. It should be one or the other, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So what we can do now is we can say document dot get element by ID, and you can see there's some auto completing here. So instead of app, we're going to use score. So what I want to do is I want to take the score, and I do want to change the inner HTML. The inner HTML is like the inner HTML is here. That is the inner HTML. What is in there? It's called HTML because it could have HTML, like a bold tag, for example. Bold, open, close. Oh my gosh, right? Like it could have bold, and then it's gonna, it's inner HTML, right? You could also use inner text, but if you use inner text, then you can't add HTML. So you can't any longer say B for bold, right? You have to just give it a value. Now the value we're going to give it is 0. 0 is a number. It's not a string. So if 0 is in a string like this, now 0 is a string. The difference is numbers can be added to, strings can be appended, add it to the end. A number you can add, if you add 1 to 0, you get 1. You don't get 0 plus 1, right? 0 plus 1 is 1, whereas if it's a string, and you say like 0 plus 1, now the answer is 0, 1 as a string. Whereas if they're numbers, like this, then it equals 1, right? Anyway, so the inner text is the score. So the score, let's say 10. So now when this JavaScript runs, it's going to update the score to be 10. Great. But the score to start with should be 0. Now what we want to do is when we click this button, we want to increase the value of the score. How do we do that? So what we do is we do a, we need to get the element of the button. So we can give this a name, an ID, and we should give this a useful ID. So then it's, we all know from reading it what it is. So the moment it's a click me button, but maybe we could find a better name for this. Do you have any ideas? This is an important part of learning to code, but it's not really straightforward. But for now, we're going to call it a click me button. All right. Now I think in IDs, yeah, we do. If you look at an example of an ID, MDN ID, this is another thing that you just have to get used to because this works, right? But it's not technically correct because in HTML we don't do camel casing. Camel casing is where the first letter of each word starts with a update counter. Great idea. Oh, hey Redo, what's up? Thanks for watching. Update counter. Okay, so now this button has an ID of update counter. So now what we can do is we can do document. Yeah, if you missed my intro, I'm doing a this is like my beginner friendly course. This is like my very first. If you want to learn how to code and you have no idea what to do this. Okay. Yeah, I'm doing good. Thanks, man. Okay, so now we can get the element by ID, and we want to add an event listener. I don't remember how to do this, so we're gonna Google it. Event listener MDN. Okay, so event target add event listener method. You can read this in your own time. What I want to know is how do I use it? So it takes a few inputs, parameters. Yeah, parameters is the right word. So remember we said when we're writing a function, you say parentheses and then you give it the value. That value is called a parameter. And sometimes you can give it more than one parameter. So the type is a case-sensitive string representing the event type to listen for. So you need to get this exactly right. Here is a list of things that you can listen for. All of these things. We want to listen for click. It's a mouse element. Here we go. Great. This is what we're listening for, is a click event. So what we do is we add an event listener, we give it the name of the thing that we're looking for, and then we give it a function. Now there's a few different ways to write a function. This is the JavaScript 2015 way to write it, which we call ECMAScript. Hey, cool. Yeah, so we need to add the click, and what we need to do is we need to add it to the element. So once we have the element itself, let's go back to our code. Now we have the element. So if we were to open this in the console, you can see we have the element. So what we want to do is we want to add to the element an event listener. Add event listener. And you can see that it's auto-filled us some useful stuff. Let's try to hide this. I don't know how to hide it. Yeah. So now what we're doing is we're saying document.get element by ID, update counter, add an event listener. So now there's an event listener on the button. So if you click the button, it runs this code. Now, what is this code? This is a function. So this empty parentheses is a parameter. So something can be added to this, but it doesn't need to be. And the space in these curly brackets, that's the code that we're going to edit. You can see that this is very good. This is exactly what we want to do, right? So what it's doing is document. This is the AI learning, right? Document.get element by ID score. Take the score and the inner text. We want to pass the integer. I can hear you saying, "What the fuck is pass integer, James? You haven't told me this yet." Yeah, I'm not going to teach you it. You're just going to Google it, right? Pass int. This is what it does. I'm not explaining it to you. You can do that bit yourself. Pass the integer, and it takes a parameter. A parameter is a string, right? The string, and the value is document.get element by ID score and the inner text. Now, if you remember the HTML, we have this element, which is which needs to be started with 0. This element has an ID of score, and the inner text is this string. So to change it from a string to a number, we're going to pass the integer. Pass means read, like read the integer. Welcome, Anonymous, to the sandbox, right? So we're going to, so actually our JavaScript, this is pretty good. It's pretty good. This is what we want to do. And we're going to add 1. So now if we have a look at our code, if we click, let's refresh. Let's make sure it's saved. If we click, we can increase the score. So what's happening is we've set a event listener on this element, which is our button. What we're listening for is a click. And every time the click is heard, we want to run this function. This function does not take in any parameters, no parameters. And the code that it runs is this. It gets document.get element by ID score. So it gets this number here, which is a string of 15. And it gets the inner text, which is the string. And it passes the integer. So it translates the string into a number. So it takes the number, the string 15, and translates it to a number which is also 15, and we add 1. So now we have a shitty game complete. Real shit, but it works. So that's all I wanted to show you for now. And what we're going to do in this series is build out this game. So what I might do is I'm still pumping, so I might go and get another coffee, take a little bit of a break, and we'll keep going with it. So if you have any questions, please add them to the feed. I'd really appreciate it. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. All right, thanks for the comment, Retta. So I'm gonna copy your comment, and we're gonna add it here. So yeah, this is a really good point. What Reddit has suggested is to use some. We're going to use some variables to make this easier to read. Okay, so you can see Prettier is automatically styling this. So what Reddit has really correctly done is put the counter into a variable. Now, yeah, this is what we're going to do next. So, this is pretty difficult to read, right? If you're another engineer and you're coming in here and you want to try to understand this, it's very difficult. So, what we can do is, so Reddit called it a counter. I've called it a score. They're both correct, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace this here, this text. You can see it's written 3 times. We only want it written 1 time, and we want it written as small as possible so that it's as easy to read for other people. So how we're going to do that is we're going to say make a new variable, let. So let means here is a variable, and that variable is changeable, right? So if it was const, this is a constant which has never changed. Now in JavaScript we say everything is a constant unless it's not, right? So this score is going to be equal to document.getElementById score in a text. Now this score is so it's underlined red because we've defined a variable but we're never going to use it, or we've not used it yet. But I need to do one more thing to this. Actually, what I want is this pass int, because when I read the score, I need to read this integer. Sorry, read this string as an integer. So now, when I say score, I get the number and not the string. Let me show you what I mean. Let me show you the next thing that you'll use a lot is console log. So what this means is whenever this runs, it adds to the console. So if we save this and we run our page again, you can see we get a number of 0. What happens if we don't have pass int? Reload this. Oh, I've reloaded the wrong page. I want to reload this one. Now we get a string. So it's hard to tell, is this a string or a number? Because it's just slightly different colors. But what we can do is we can say type of score. So type of is a special function that tells us what kind of type of variable score is. So now we know it's a string. But if we say pass int, we wrap the whole thing in this. If we reload the page now, we get a number. Now, do we want it as a number or do we want it as a string? It's a good question. Let's for now make it a number. So what we want to do first is when we load the page, we want to set the inner text to score. So when we load the page, we want to set it to 0. So now this 0 is coming from here. So this is a problem. This is a loop, right? So what we're doing is this here, it gets the score from the inner text, turns it into a number, and then this line, it updates the inner text with this number. So what we need to do is we need to know, like, what is the source of truth? Let score equal 0. Okay, so now we have the problem that Redder has already solved. We have a score and we have a counter. So what we want is a number, which is the source of truth, and what is that number? And then we want something else to display it. So Redder called this counter. If we call it counter, it also works. But I'm going to call it display, score display. Score display. Because this is what's actually being displayed, right? So, hang on, I've done this totally wrong. Let's start again. Okay. We're setting a score variable to 0. What we're doing when we load the page is we're setting this inner text to the current score. So let's say it's 5. If we reset the page, reload the page, we will have a score of 5. We want to start the game with a score of 0. Score value. Yeah, this is score value. I think this will make sense, right? So what this line of code does is it updates the score this one. Have I spelled score wrong? Everything looks wrong now. I did spell. Oh my god, I can't even think anymore. Okay. Is this how you spell it? Fuck me. Yep. Alright, sweet. So this line of code, what it does is it updates the score. So what we want to do is we want to update the score when we first load the page. Because if we don't do that, and the score is set as nothing, so if we don't do this, comment it out, then it says score nothing. So now we update the score to 0. Now what this button, that's fine. This is all fine so far. So now this button, does it still work? It does still work. But we want to make it cleaner. We want to clean this code up a little bit. And so what we do is, so this function is listening for the click on the button, right? And then this click on a button, so we've got this, so what it does is it updates the inner text number. So it's getting the number from the element. So it's saying the source of truth for the element, for the score, is written on the page. Actually, what I want it to do is be stored in score. So now this works the same, almost. Okay, so score is equal to 0. And what we do is we update here, we update the element to be score. Now on click, we take the score and we add 1. But what we're not doing is we're not, so if we do console.log score, you can see the first time we click it, oh, like what's happening here, it's still 0. So what happens is we say we want the inner text of score to be score plus 1. Score is equal to 0, so score plus 1 is 1, and the score doesn't change. What we want to do is we want to add 1 to the score. So we can do that by this. Score is equal to score plus 1. And then what we're doing is we're just updating the page. So this, we're updating the score, and this, we're updating the page. Now, you can see we're updating the score each time. Now I want to make this cleaner, so I'm going to do what Redder suggested before and say let this is going to be a constant because it's never going to change. Constant, and it's going to be called counter. Counter is equal to document.get element by ID score in a text. So now instead of we can say counter is equal to score. Now JavaScript runs from top to bottom. So if you're going to adjust something, you need to, oh my gosh, my brain isn't working. Yeah, if you're going to adjust something, if you're going to reference a variable, you need to write the variable before you reference it. Now, this is a problem because counter is constant, so we can say let. So now we have two values. One is the score and one is the counter. The counter is what's in the HTML, right? So the counter should be equal to the score at all times, really. Why doesn't this work now? It's because counter is assigned and never used. This is us using it, so I don't know why. Strange. Any ideas? String versus number. Yeah, it could be. It could be. But I would have thought it would say so. Pass int. No, this should be fine. Counter.inner text. Okay, that's stupid. That works. Cool. So I don't know why that works, but it does. So what we're doing is we're saying instead of writing document.get element by ID score every time, now we can just write counter. So this is a shortcut for a const. This never changes. Counter always means this element. And what we're doing is we're taking this element and we're updating the inner text to be the score. Now, we can do some more changes here. So because we have counter variable, we no longer need to say this because we already say it here. So now we can just say counter.innerText score. But this function, sorry, this line and this line are exactly the same. So what we can do is write a new function. We'll write it here. There's a bunch of ways you can write functions, but we'll use ES6. So constant update display score display. This is a function and it takes no parameters, which means like no input, and what it will do is this line of code. Now what we can do is we can replace here with update score display and update score display. The benefit is, so now it still works, but the benefit is if we want to do something different, like for example, we want score to equal 8. I don't know why you'd do that. Now it updates it for every place. So when we first load, it updates it to 8. And when we click on it, it updates it to 8. That's a silly thing to do, but the point is we want our code to be 1, easier to read, and 2, we want it to be easier to maintain and update. So we have our score is equal to 0. When we say counter, what we mean is document.get element by ID score. Now in the function, so we have a function called update score display, and anytime we run this, we run it like this. What we do is we take the counter, we take the inner text, and we update it to the new score. So now what's happening is this function, when we click it, we add 1 to the score. That's it. That's what I was trying to show. what we're going to do next time is add another button. And what we're going to do is keep adding things until this game is fun. And the idea is, I really want you to make your own game and make it fun, right? Like this sort of game is called a incremental game, and there are so many incremental games that you can base yours on. Here we go. There's a whole Reddit subreddit about it. Here is a what I want is a list of games, right? Ultimate list of incremental games. Cool. Web-based games. This is what we're doing. We're making a web-based game. So all these web-based games, they have some of them you can play for free, some of them you can't. I'll show you an example of my favorite ones. So it's Cookie Clicker. This is probably the most popular one. It's very, very advanced. It's got a lot of real fancy stylings. And what happens is when you click the cookie, you get a cookie. So you get one cookie. And if you click it a bunch, you can get upgrades like this cursor. Now there's an automatic cursor that clicks on the cookies for me, and so it gets cookies. Right? This is a clicker game. It's also called an incremental game, and it's the thing that we're building. My incremental game is this. It's much simpler. It's not much style, whatever. But what I want is for you to create your game. And the reason for this is because I want you to be excited about it, and I want you to wake up early on a Saturday morning like I have myself today and be like, I've got a good idea for my game. I'm going to add it. And you're going to be like, I want to add the background color, but I don't know how the fuck to do this. Great. Here's your next CSS thing that you're going to learn. Upgrading the background color. And if you're like, I'm really excited about my game, but, I just feel like I'm not getting anywhere, that's fine. What you want to do is go to freecodecamp.org, start on HTML. Whatever it is you're struggling with right now, start on it. If you don't know HTML, do the HTML. If you want to do JavaScript, just jump to JavaScript. You don't need to do this in order. So this one is going to teach you JavaScript by building a role-playing game. Great. Cool. So just learn JavaScript as you need to. Alright, this is real similar to what I made, so that's pretty good. Maybe just do this. Cool. Alright. Yeah, that's it. Thanks so much for joining. I'm going to keep adding to this, hopefully. And ideally, we'll get a full course at the end. But happy learning. Thanks so much for joining. Thanks for joining, Redda. Thanks for your comments. I appreciate it. Catch you later.